Hey there, Dr. Anna Maria Helt, herbalist and microbiologist here. Today I'm going to do just a quick spore print demo now that mushroom weather is here and approaching, depending on where you live. I thought I would show this handy technique for mushroom identification. And so a spore print is when you have your mushroom that you're working on identifying. This is one that is growing in my greenhouse. If you looked at my video last week, you'll recognize it. With a spore print, you're popping the stalk off and putting the cap, gill or pore side down, on a piece of paper. And you're going to let it sit for several hours to overnight for the spores to release. And you can use the color of those spores as one of the ways to help you identify a mushroom. You should always be 100% sure of any mushroom you're intending on using for food and medicine before you put it in your mouth. You really need to know what that mushroom is, and it goes beyond simply knowing what it looks like and where it grows. You want to do other techniques like doing spore prints, so that you can have yet one more tool in your toolbox to help you make a proper identification so that you don't get sick. So making a spore print, pretty simple. Like I said, you're just going to gently pull the stalk off of the cap. This is a very delicate cap, so it's a little harder to work with. You're going to put the cap gill side down on a piece of paper. Now, I'm using white paper here because I already know that this particular mushroom is going to have black spores. And if this were a mushroom that I thought is going to have white spores, like a species of Amanita, then I would do the spore print on a dark piece of paper. If you have no idea whatsoever what the mushroom is, and you don't know what color the spores are going to be, you can get a piece of light paper and a piece of dark paper and tape them together, and then put the cap on the boundary between them. That way, if the spores are really light, they will show up on the dark paper, and if the spores are really dark, they'll show up on the light paper. Now, people that do mushroom propagation will sometimes do spore prints on aluminum foil as a way to preserve those spores, to store them, to ship them to other people. You can also do a spore print on glass. That's a really pretty way to go as well. And these, like I said, they're very useful and important for proper identification of a mushroom species, but they're beautiful. You could make spore print art, greeting cards, or whatever you want to make. Now, another trick here to help the mushroom sporulate is to put a drop of water on the cap there, almost like it's raining, and that'll help stimulate the mushroom to drop some spores. And then you're going to cover it with a bowl or just anything to keep the air from blowing those spores away while the spores are dropping out of the mushroom cap, because they're very tiny and it's really easy for your spore print to be disturbed. So I'm going to leave this alone for the afternoon and come back later and check it out to see if we got a spore print. So here we go. I did a few of them, or several of them here, and trimmed the paper, and you can actually see the color of the spores en masse when they're all piled up, and you can see that they're dark. You can even see the gill patterns. So these are really fun to do. Now, if I'm just going to use these if I want to preserve these and maybe keep them in a notebook or do something artsy with them, I'll use a fixative on them to keep the spores from coming off of the paper. Even some Aquanet very carefully sprayed on the paper or the foil or whatever you've spore printed on will help stabilize them. If, on the other hand, you're spore printing different kinds of mushrooms for propagation, then of course you're not going to want to spray them with a fixative. And so while I'm at it, some other examples of spore prints. This is actually an image of one. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. This is an Amanita. So this is a white spore print. You can see the gills if you look really carefully. I probably should have done this on black construction paper, but I thought maybe some craft paper would work. So that is Amanita muscaria, a fly agaric spore print. And this is an agaricus species spore print. Agaricus is a genus of mushrooms that are essentially the wild cousins of the grocery store button mushroom. And it's not a perfect spore print, but what you can see are dark brown spores here, which is characteristic of multiple species of agaricus. This was one I just found in town growing along the sidewalk. So I have kind of what the mushroom is and where I found it there. This one's going to be really hard to see, but let's see if it'll show up. See that? That's a chanterelle spore print. Cantharellus roseocanis, our local chanterelle here in the Southern Rockies, a light-colored spore print. And then I promise this will be the last one. A couple more agaricus mushrooms from up in the mountains here. There was a larger agaricus here. You can see the beautiful gill pattern. And then there was a smaller agaricus growing in the same area. They were actually two different species of agaricus. The small one was really dropping a lot of spores. So spore prints, really cool, very handy, very important if you plan on eating or using as medicine what you harvested. Know what you're harvesting, but really fun to do just with any mushroom, even random stuff showing up in the park. Make a spore print out of it. All right, thanks for watching.